Okay, it's happening. All right, everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. You made it. It's the last session before the closing stuff, where everyone gets their C's and their instructions. So thank you for sticking with us. Seriously, I listen. I do this presentation kind of slightly different. First year teachers kind of all the time. Because I work with employee onboarding, and when you're new and it's your first year, there's a lot of things you need to know so that you stay, right? And when I got this opportunity, I'm like, what do people need? And I think I'm like, honestly, people are stressed out right now and people are down, and I feel it too. And I figured that this might be the space where we can talk. Let's talk about it, right? Because it's easy to say it's for the students, and maybe it is, right? It's easy to say that, we've got our whys, and maybe we do. But I think that by opening up this space, we're going to be able to talk about it, and we're going to be able to share stories because, I feel blessed that I have a lot of people in my corner, right? Like I've got people that can show up when I need that moment. And I'm just kind of hoping that if there's anybody here that doesn't have that you can at least see that people relate. And so that's the whole point of this. I've got my intro, and the reality is, you know, I'm an eighth year educator, and I hear it all the time. There's people that are like, "Oh, really? Just wait, Nathan. just wait." Um, I don't need to wait. All right, I don't need to wait. I think I'm good. I think I'm good. Um, I think that I might have a slightly different point of view, and I hope to share it. And I hope that you guys have space for it. And I'm going to tell you where my journey started. So I started as a long-term sub for 2 years, and I was a long-term sub for 2 years because I didn't know that I had all the qualifications to get licensed. And one day I called the Nevada Department of Education back when they had a phone and you could call them and they'd answer. And I got the coolest lady. Her name was Paige. And she's like, "What are you talking about, ARL bros? Like, it's like, what? Like, with all this experience you have, you can just be licensed now to teach business." And I was like, "Wait, really? Okay." So I just went down there, gave him my paperwork, I did it, and suddenly I went from long-term subbing ceramics for fun to, never turning back. I never wanted to. I wanted to try it for like, what is it? A week or two, just play around. I was kind of in a rut. My dad died. I was like, I knew a principal who was like, "You should come check it out, sub for a little while." And I did it day one, never wanted to turn back. Okay. Now, what happened was I was a mid-year hire at a middle school because at the time I was like, this is cool and all, but I kind of want to get this license going. So I taught video game design. And I walked in there and I told that principal, "I don't know how to do video game design. I play video games." Okay. And I promise I'll figure it out. And the guy was like, "Okay, cool." And so I got hired to teach computer literacy. Sorry, they changed the name of the class a lot. And it's one of those classes every sixth grader has to take. So I taught like all the sixth graders that year. And then after that, we became a magnet school. And suddenly everyone had to take every class. And so it became a situation where I taught 90% of this middle school. All right. And by the time that my first batch of sixth graders, they went to go off to high school, I followed them. I called up the principal at the high school down the street. I said, "Yo, you want a business teacher?" And she was like, "Okay." Sometimes it's really just that easy. I swear to God. Like, um, so then I followed them. I was like, "All right, let's do this." And so because of that, I've had the pleasure to watch them grow up. And when I say watch them grow up, I mean like literally. I taught them when they were 11. Like I had a big batch graduate last year. My sixth graders are graduating this year. A lot of my students I've taught for 7 years in a row. And that's what gives me this perspective that I hope to share with you, is because I think that sometimes amazing things get lost in what you don't know and what you don't see. But now that I've done it for 7 years, I've seen it. And I want to talk about it. Okay. And so as part of that, I want to say that if you're here for a change, right? You read the description of the room. and agree that wherever you are on your teaching journey, whatever you're feeling, whatever you have to do tomorrow, right? In order to make everybody happy, that you're in need of nutrition. That's why you're here. And I get that. And there's a part of the job that you want back. And I get that too. And please know that this is a safe space. And it's one where you can be vulnerable. It's one where you can share. It's one where you can be seen, right? And if you're one of those people that's super paranoid that somebody's ever going to get a hold of this, like recording, and some admin or somebody's going to be mad at you, then by all means stay silent, but know that we still see you and we respect you, and we see where you're at. Okay. And you can still be a part of this. And so know that we're going to go over several topics. I just kind of sat down and figured out real talk, and there will be a level of voluntary participation. We have enough people. We have enough people here, so I'll do my voluntary participation slides. I made 2 thorough, right? Guess that's me. Sometimes in the chat, sometimes I'll open it up for you guys to talk if you feel so moved, and I hope you will. And listen, you know that whole like, what's your why? Put your why in the chat. Let's talk about your why. Let's get into a breakout room and talk about our why. We're not going to do that, because you know what? Really, you've done it enough, right? You've done it enough. You've probably done it a couple times today, depending on what rooms you were in. You've done it enough, and it's personal, all right? And I could tell you my why. Someone said thanks. You're welcome. I can tell you why, but the truth is it doesn't matter. And I'll tell you why. Because mine, it's changed, and it's changed several times. And when I first education, I had my why, but you know what? I was young and I was arrogant, and I thought things would go a certain way, right? And I'll tell you the day that my why changed. It was when an 11-year-old came to me, and he asked me, "Do you have any duct tape?" And you know what I found over time is, generally speaking, if a student asks for duct tape specifically, something's going on. Okay, like I mean it. Like tape is one thing they might be working on. I mean, I don't know how we've devolved into teaching science through arts and crafts alone, but like duct tape, something's going down. Okay, so he asked for some duct tape, and it was because his shoes were really messed up. Like they got to the point where I was like ready to break, right? And he could walk some. And sorry, I had to get down to my Red Bull. And what happened was, he asked me to fix his shoe, and it was easy enough, right? And just duct taped it. And then, you know, at that time I thought I was feeding my why. I was like, you know, this is it, right? This is it. These are the moments. These are the moments, like somebody needed help with a basic function, and here it is. But you know what? He came to school the next day and he was still wearing those shoes, right? And that's when my why changed. That's when I realized that it's not enough to have privilege and want to share it with others. It's not enough to be extraordinarily educated and want to give that to other people. It's not enough to fill a vessel or light a fire. You have to be the change, right? And so that's when it changed for me. That's when I realized, okay, it's going to take more than that. And you know what? I asked for help, because I thought I could buy him the shoes. You know, Nathan's got some money, right? I could buy some pair of shoes. That's not a problem. But that doesn't really change the issue. The underlying issue is that he's coming to school with broken shoes, and honestly, it's like nobody else noticed, or they didn't care. It's whatever, you know. This is how it turned out. He's in front of me. That's the situation. And I asked the school, "Can we get him some shoes?" And they were trying to act as if this kid was like a scam artist of some sort. It's like, this is not the case. I went to the counselor and I said, "Hey, can we get this kid some shoes?" Because remember, I was young and I was arrogant, and I thought that's what counselors did, and that's not the case. Okay, sometimes apparently so, but you know, I was told very clearly at that time that that's not a counselor's function. So I'm like, okay. But then she said she would call up the kid to like question him to make sure that he's not trying to like take us for a ride to get a free pair of shoes. And I was like, "No, lady, I think we're good." The story ends well. I went to the dean. By the time I hit my 4th person that was really not cooperating, and I was like, you know, why is it that a student can come here and without proper shoes, and that's just okay? And she actually fixed it. You know what? So those are the moments, right? The moments where someone steps up, but it took a lot for me to do that. And I think over time, as things compound, right? Things compound, and there's more to do, and there's more paperwork, and there's more responsibilities, that it's harder to find the wherewithal to be that person that can go to 4 different people for 1 pair of shoes, right? And I think that that's endemic. It's an endemic thing. And I think that as long as we have people like that super receptive dean that made the change, that we can get closer to there. I think a lot of times the problem is we go home mad and we don't ever talk about it. Like I always say, don't go home mad at your school, go talk about it. And sometimes people are comfortable doing that, sometimes they're not. But I don't know, maybe I'm just the fortunate one that it tends to work out. So that's when I realized that my why not only changed, but is subject to change, right? That they can change tomorrow. And sometimes it does, sometimes it changes day over day. And that's okay. Because sometimes my why is it doesn't matter, I have to survive. It's grades are posting, everyone needs help. Right? Progress reports were yesterday, everyone. Believe you me, it was a little hectic, right? But again, I have students that I've had for a long time that I can lean on. Not that anyone of us have ever had any formal training in delegating, right? So it was just kind of like, hey, can you help out with this? So my hope is, at the end of this session, if you don't have a why or you can't remember it, that you'll rediscover it without having to share it with us. But if you realize that you've been living your why and things aren't going as planned, that maybe it's time to change it and that you'll rediscover a new one. That's my hope. That's my hope. And I'm going to need your guys' help to make that happen, right? Now, I usually do Google Meet, so I need to see how to share my screen. I'm guessing it's this green share screen button, right? I'm assuming that's the one. Okay. Lord. Okay, guys, please don't tab shame me. I'm an extreme tabber. Lots of tabs. Can you like move this? Okay, lots of tabs. Okay, we're running into an issue here because now my presentation is gone. That's fine. You know what? How often does this happen in the classroom? you guys can relate to me, right? This is what's happening. All right. So the power of one. Let's talk about it. I don't mean it in some cheesy Brady Bunch kind of way. I mean literally one person can have a lot of power in the lives of another person, right? And I think you know that, and I think you've experienced it. And I want to know more about it, right? I want to know. Like, wait, can you guys see these black bars? Can I like move this? Okay, I think we're good now. So let's talk about that one. That one teacher you had. What's her name? Celebrate them. Put them in the chat for me, please. This is their moment to have back that one teacher you had. Everyone has it. Please toss it in the chat. I want to see. Let me go back to. Okay, well that doesn't work. Wait. I'm figuring it out, Mr. Brasco. Like, okay, that's gonna like end the meeting. Sweet. See what I mean? See how easy that was? Super fast, right? Somebody.
Do you want me to read some of them out?
No, it's okay. It's okay because I'm going to give him a chance to talk about it in a second. So listen, I'm going to tell you who mine is. Her name is Mrs. Bumpus. She's still in the district. You might know her. Okay. Now let me tell you, I'm a product of CCSD, right? I'm a product of CCSD. That's something you need to know. Oh, wait. Oh, look, I messed up my reveal. While I tell my story, if you've ever been that one teacher, if you have reason to believe you've been that one teacher, I want you to write, I am that one teacher in the chat, please. This is your moment to celebrate yourself. All right. Like seriously, this is the moment where you get to say, I am that one teacher. Not I was, not I have been. You are that one teacher. Okay. And I want you to remember this moment because look at all this amazing change, this absolute spectacular impact that we're seeing. Every one of these people in here saying this, they changed the life, right? So I'm a product of CCSD, and I'll tell you exactly what happened to me. I didn't mean for that to rhyme. I came here from Panama. Okay, literally the country of Panama is where I'm from. We came after the invasion. It was not a great time. And I went to EJ May Elementary, and I have no idea who the admin was there. Okay, but whoever this person was told my parents to basically assimilate me because I know that's not our policy in Nevada now. right? But you wouldn't have guessed I was Hispanic, right? It was because this one assistant principal said, only speak English in the household, only speak English in the household, seriously. And on top of that, straight up said, like, if this kid's ever gonna fit in, he's got to know more than Spanish, right? I was 3.5. I mean, I suppose it worked, right? I suppose it worked. I've never had to face down racism. Okay, that's never had to happen, but it certainly left a distance between me and my family that will likely never be bridged. And I think that's why it's important to know that when we say about, what about supporting our ELLs, that it's not just platitudes, it's not just saying it to say it. All right. It's because there's a reason why we've changed it, right? There's a reason why. So someone says they're jealous of their students that are bilingual. Yo, same. Okay, so then I went to Lead Middle School, and I don't know what was happening. Like, I look back and some of the stuff that happened when I was in school, which is not that long ago. I was class of 07, okay, which I guess is almost 20 years ago, but I'm gonna feel young for at least a moment. What happened was I went to Lead Middle School, and there was just such big class sizes, and I remember there were so many students that went there. I mean, it was like right after it was built, and like you could only go down the hallways one way, and it was like really like, I don't know, we're kind of herded like cattle. I don't remember much of middle school, probably because nothing stood out that much. I was always a pretty good student. I don't know. I don't remember it being super crazy town, but I don't have a teacher from that school that I could say, they were the one for me. And when I reached out to Miss Bumpus, she was kind of like, I don't know you, bro. But she was very nice about it because she still worked for the district. So I wanted to email her. I want to say, I just wanted you to know. It's like, I just wanted you to know, like, I had a positive time in your class in 4th grade. Now, here's the thing about teaching, something that something you might have forgotten, and that is that it fills an existential need, right? Nobody came into education for the money or the fame, right? That's, you hear that all the time. But nobody hears the flip side of that conversation. The flip side of that conversation is you came into education because either you wanted paid summers off, which, respect, you've earned it, okay? Or more likely, you wanted to fill an existential need, you wanted to make a difference, right? And we know this to be true. And look at all those people that say, I'm that one person, right? All the people that got to say that, like, it's because that's an existential need, something you needed to have from your work. And not everybody has that. And it's okay to not have that. Some people, they're good. They're good going through the motions. Work is work, and it's money, and it's survival. And they fill their existential needs in another way, right? A lot of our students, they'll come and they'll say, no, I want to drive a tractor for the rest of my life because I like driving tractors. And I don't know, I think they hear from a lot of people, adults in their lives, well, that's not good enough. To me, I teach business, and I get to say, okay, I'm all for it, man. If you want to drive that tractor, you drive that tractor, because blue collar work is respectable. You don't need work to fill an existential need. And I tell them, let's just come up with a plan, right? Let's come up with a plan so that you can at least, like, maybe move into management, or you can hit a point where you're not having to use your body, right? Like, because that's not going to work forever, so that you can use your brain too at the same time to maybe move up, maybe become a foreman, maybe become someone that works in the corporate office, maybe start your own thing. But at the end of the day, to where you get to pass your advantages onto your kids instead of your labors, right? And they always seem to like that. All right, I'm down for it. Thank you, Felicia. Appreciate you. It was a pleasure meeting you. All right. Now, this is the part where I was going to tell my story about being a product of Nevada schools. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. Apologies. I want to open it up. I want to get some time here, because listen, we got 40 minutes, and this is about telling stories, right? And I've got more stuff to say, and I've got some cool examples for you. But I want to know. Let's go for like three. Go for like three people right now. And if I wind up blowing through the rest of this presentation and we have 20 minutes left, we'll come back to it. All right. Alternatively, if we wind up not getting through the whole thing, that's okay too. All right. Because how many times we had to handle that as an educator as well, right? If you're still here, you're still into it. So here we are. Give me three people. Three people, please unshare your mic, and unshare your mic. Oh my God, my Red Bull. I'm coming back for it. Okay. Please unmute your mic and explain how that one teacher made an impact. Bear in mind, there's like 50 people in here, so I mean, I would if it wasn't like this guy gave me goldfish every day and I appreciated it, maybe something that stirs the soul. Please, I'm sure we've got 3 stories of a teacher that really made an impact on you. All right, that one teacher. First person, go.
I'm ready.
Let's do it, man.
All right. My high school band director, Mr. Coomer, he taught music theory at a college level, and I was able to pass out of freshman theory in college. I became a music teacher, and I graduated in 1978 from high school, and I just had dinner with he and his wife in Illinois when I went from for the summer, and he just taught me so much about life and about music. And he said that if you can do anything else besides music, you should go into a different career. But I chose music, like so many of my colleagues.
Well, I think that's absolutely spectacular for a lot of reasons, right? And you know what, the fact that you could pass out of your college class, I think that's absolutely amazing. And that's a point I missed too. I went to ATech for high school, right? We talked about this, and I didn't know how blessed I was at the level of education I got until I went to college, and 30% of my history 101 class didn't know what the Supreme Court was, and they like just graduated, right? Um, so I didn't realize that. And I was lucky. I was able to run into my US government teacher back in July. And I told him, I'm like, you should just know that it does make a difference, because like what you taught me made a difference there and it made a difference later. Right. And so having that's really important. And especially with all these dual enrollment options we have now where kids can do college courses in high school. There's like, have you guys seen the list? It's over 100. There's a ton of them now. There's one for almost everything, which I guess doesn't affect elementary as much. But you know what? You're the guys that get them ready for us to do early college. So thank you for all you do, elementary teachers. All right, next person, please. Is there another? Second person, go.
I can speak.
Please speak.
All right. So I I'm an alumni of El Dorado High School, and I teach there. And I think so. I became a professional photographer because of my instructor in high school, who said, you know what, this is an easy job. You just have to be technical about it. You just have to know how to do this. Once you do, he says, your personality will get you far. And then he said to me, he says, if you go to film school and learn this, he goes, I will loan you they had 4x5 cameras that are huge, right? They actually had a 4x5 negative at the time. That's when we used negatives. And he says, I will loan you
those are.
Yeah, I'll loan you my tripod, I'll loan you my camera, and I will loan you my 3 different lenses that I have for it if you go to school. And I said, I'll do it. I said, all right, just give me the supplies, because everything was so expensive. And because of him, I learned a trade that was lucrative. And we still kept in touch with Mr. Pomeroy. It wasn't just me, it was several of us from those that attended community college. So he taught high school in the morning, and then in the evening he taught at community college. And I'm telling you, we would still get together every year and go to Mikhail's when that was open, have some margaritas, talk, and year after year after year, we would always come back together and meet at the same place and just talk about good times in high school and everything. And last year he passed away, so we were all devastated, but because he made a difference in our lives.
I want to be clear. I've told my students that at my funeral, I want them to be ridiculous. Like I want security to have to escort them out. Like I want it to be like, bring him back.
No, they probably would do that for you, Nathan. You have a fan base. You have all these kids that love you, that you followed since 6th grade. And now they're like graduating. And I can't imagine how that feels to have these kids, for all that time. And now they're graduating and they're leaving. So thank you for everything you do.
Oh, yeah, no problem. And you know what? Adriana brings up an amazing point, right? And that's that you're more than a teacher, right? You have way more skill, way more education than most people in the world. If you are an educator, if you're in this room, you're one of the most educated minds in the world. All right. How many people in Nevada have bachelor's degrees? Just because you hang out bachelor's degree people every single day doesn't mean that more than 11% of people in Nevada have bachelor's degrees, right? And so let's talk about it. All right, let's talk about it. So I have the pleasure of knowing Adriana. She works at my school, and I can tell you this much. She's more than a teacher. She's a campaign manager. She gets people elected. All right, elected genuinely. Like she knows them all. That's her thing, right? And she's able to bring that to the classroom. And then she gets to go home and do that practice, right? And that's all of you too. You're more than a teacher, right? It's like because you have a lot of intrinsic value that I think that sometimes it gets a little swallowed up because our days are packed and our jobs are emotionally taxing, right? We know this. Like this is not something that's new.
Okay, shut up.
Oh my, Adriana, I'm a muter. Okay. um, it's emotionally taxing. You know, this we know, and that's why those summers are so great, right? And those breaks are so frequent. But you get to be more, right? You get to be more, and like don't lose sight of that. You know, like that's a really important thing. Like I as an educator, I discover new skills all the time where I'm just like, okay, I could do that. I'm down. And I think that a lot of you find that in love for travel. A lot of you find that in love for exercise and adventure, right? And I don't know, I think that it's important to realize that your profession might be stressful and stress might be single faceted. All right. But that doesn't make you single faceted. All right. Just because you're under it, you're still a multifaceted person. Let me get a third person, please. All right. We need third person. Oh, wait. Theo? Is that right?
So I too am a product of Clark County. I went to Gregson Elementary, Cram, Centennial, Mojave. And like I was like a really smart kid, like the gate kid, honors this, accelerated that. And as a result, I was a kid that teachers were like stick in the corner, like, oh, Alexis is good. She doesn't need help. I don't have to worry about her. I'm gonna go help these other kids. And I got good grades, but I was so bored. And my teacher in seventh grade or eighth grade, I think it was eighth grade, Miss Roberts. It's so funny because she was so sneaky about it. Because at the time, I didn't realize she was just giving me more work to do. But because I was so bored, she'd be like, "Oh, I think you really like this book. Why don't you try this worksheet instead of this worksheet?" And like she made school fun for me again because I didn't like it. It was bored. I wasn't, obviously the class wasn't moving at the same pace. And I love that. And so now I get to do that for my kids too. I feel like we get so stuck on the students we have to differentiate for the kids who are behind and bring them up. But we also have to differentiate for those kids who are ahead. We don't want to just stick them in the corner like I was. So my teachers like that, I credit for like making me become a teacher really.
Well, thank you for validating me. And the reason why is because like all of these, I swear, I have like something in my presentation for literally everything you guys brought up. It's because you know what it is, it's that I don't know, people try to think of a classroom as a parable or a mirror or a smaller representation of a political structure like a monarchy or an oligarchy or a democracy or a dictatorship, right? But in reality it should be more like a garden, right? If we're doing it right, it's more like a garden. And what your teacher did was she changed your soil because you weren't thriving in the soil you were in, right? And that's something to keep in mind across the board, right? Like genuinely, why do you think we have such a move for blended and modern learning and discussion based, knowledge based, problem based? How many base things do we have? Plenty of them. personalized, competency based. Like there's no end. Trust me. Google, just Google hyphen based education, and you have no shortage. Okay, I mean it. But I'll say this: it's because somewhere in the system we made a drastic change. When I was in school, which was not that long ago, okay, I remember it was the teacher goes up there on what were they called? Was it the overhead projector with the transparencies and the thing? And
They had
they,
to crank
they
it with your piece of V markers.
yeah, and then they say, we're gonna this is what you need to know, and you're gonna have a test on it. And then I was like, okay. So I did it and I followed along, and then it was all right. Now silent work in the book, only the odd numbered pages, because the even numbered pages in the math book were in the back type situation. But sometimes the teacher either forgot or was just like, let's give them a break because then they did it the other way. Or probably got off of teachers pay teachers from a part of the country where the answers were in the even part of the even pages in the back of the book. So then we started saying, well, we want more collaboration, right? We want more collaboration because we realized the data wasn't working. We were just turning out slightly more well-read Del Taco workers, all right? When 80% or more of the country wasn't getting degrees, right? Then we introduced trade school and things just changed and it became a lot more collaborative, and that was absolutely spectacular. And now it's evolving even more, right? But somewhere along the line, and this is a nationwide problem, the cracks started forming. You ever heard of students falling through the cracks? And it's kind of one of those like, ooh, you're not supposed to talk about the cracks. Like it's like you look at someone, you're like, oh, this kid's falling through the cracks. They're like, no one falls through the cracks. The reality is there are cracks, and most of the time, the people that don't fall in them are the people somewhere in the middle, right? Our most vulnerable populations fall through the cracks. Our high flyers fall through the cracks because just like in her example, you figure they're good. They're a good kid. They're smart. They're going to be able to pass this no problem. Just let them do their thing, right? But that doesn't mean they're thriving, and it doesn't mean that they're not at risk from other factors not having to do with education. And it's not about introducing more rigor or challenge. It's about making sure they're getting the right nutrients. Last year I had 8 students that I identified that were absolutely the top of their class, right? And they were kind of like, they were getting stuff out of high school for the most part. High school was great. I'm sure it was a great social experience for them, but I could see them going to early college. So we got them into early college. They either went to Nevada State College or CSN High School, and they're in 10th grade. It broke my heart to see them go, and I told them that, and I said, you know what? I'm like, but you got to go. I'm like, because this isn't where your soil is. It just isn't. Like you're growing different. And I think also to bear in mind is that it's sometimes harder to advocate for our high flyers than it is for our most vulnerable populations, because you know what, if I have a super sped student that needs something, you know how many departments in the school district I could call to get them something? But if I have a kid that's number 2 in his class, salutatorian status, and I want to get him into an AP class 1 year early, it's a federal case. Okay, it's a federal case. And so I guess be cognizant of it, because if you get it, they get it, and they're going to appreciate it, right? Giving them that extra challenge. I mean, she's obviously appreciating it. She's told us how much she appreciated it. So years later, she's still talking about it. Be cognizant of it, all right? Like, be that safety net. And then it's like, who's got the time for 4 meetings to make it happen? That's when you say, you know what, this shouldn't take 4 meetings. Can I provide for you a form to make this easier? You know what I mean? To get these students to where they should be. So thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to go to the next thing. That's an important lesson. Okay. Can you guys see the whole picture, or is it blocked by things? Because it's blocked on my screen. You guys are good? Okay. All right, let's talk about it. So any photos I'm sharing of students, the students are over 18 now. They're shared with permission, and they've graduated. They're no longer students. So please bear that in mind. So let me tell you what happened. And this is kind of the point. Little things stick, right? Little things stick. Just the tiniest things that you say and do, they stick sometimes for a lifetime. So this was 2 kids in middle school. I think they were in 8th grade at the time. One was super short, one was super tall, and they were both kind of getting crap for it from their friends. And I don't know, it kind of bugged me enough for me to say something about it. But I guess, you know, an unconventional manner, I told them that their job was to turn on the overhead projector every day because I lost the remote, which was actually in my drawer. And so I told the smaller kid to do it, and he's like, "Well, how do I do it?" He wants to go get a chair. I'm like, "No chairs; those are dangerous." I'm like, "You need to ask for a boost, right?" And he asks for a boost. So he goes and he gets the tall kid. They do this. They did this every single day. As you can see, they're kind of good with it, right? Now the thing is that if you look at an everyday impact, this was a small thing, and it carried on and persisted for a while. And I just thought, you know, LOL, give them that boost for the day, right? It's like I didn't realize it'd give them a boost for years. So what happened was then one day I went to Taco Bell at lunch and came back, and I don't know, some kid had got something stuck in a tree because I guess they still do some form of recess in middle school. He goes and gets to talk it every day. That's kind of what happens, yeah. And so I looked and they're both there and they just did the thing. They were like, all right, hey, give me a boost. I'll get the thing out of the tree. And I looked, I'm like, oh wow, okay. Maybe this was actually a behavioral like situation. Like this kind of taught them a skill or a soft skill. Cool, bonus, didn't expect it. Right? Didn't expect it. Now, what I want to impart on you is that the average educator, and this is just my idea, okay, it's my idea, but I believe it to be true. An average educator, when you see an impact, a student tells you they appreciated something, or you have that moment where you see something light up in their eyes and you're like, oh, they got it, or like, wow, this was a good lesson. Or that observation went off without a hitch. It's like they must really like me. Every time you have a moment of that impact, I want to say there's probably 100, maybe more, 100, 200 impacts you don't see, right? Because it goes unspoken. I mean, God knows I didn't tell Miss Bumpus anything good about her class for like 20 years later. So it's one of those things where it goes unseen because impact is almost always invisible, right? Now, I'm not talking to you guys as average educators because you're not average educators. I'll tell you how I know you're not average educators. One, because it's a Saturday and you are doing professional development. All right. Two, because out of a whole list of sessions that are happening right now, there's another one you could have gone and hidden, right? That may have been a little less involved or may have been less of a heavy topic. And I'm not saying the people that aren't here are average. What I'm saying is I know for a fact you're not because you're here. And so I want to say that for a non-average educator, an above average educator, and master educator, whatever you want to call them, it's probably more of a 1 to 1,000 ratio, right? Because you do it naturally. And that's the thing about very gifted people is they're not really good at identifying and owning their gifts because it came so natural to them. They don't think it's anything special. All right. But what happens is it wasn't until would have been like 3 years later. I you know, sometimes the students, they mess around, they show videos of stuff that they do on their phones and all that. And every once in a while, it's just kind of funny. I'm like, hey, what are you looking at? Rather than yelling at them to put it away. Right. And so this is what I saw on the tall kid's phone. All right. You ready for this? You ready for this? They do it in their adulthood at like places, like celebrations. It's like a rodeo of some sort. I'm trying to bring down the volume, but I can't. They still do it. Like they still do it, right? And I hadn't seen them. That hadn't been that hadn't been my students for a couple of years, right? And so that was a moment where I'm like, oh my god. It's like that's what it really solidifies. Like, you know, you make a difference and you don't know it, right? That they can actually be going and having a blast with their friends. Yeah, right. That's impact, right? I mean, this is genuinely like this is not in a school setting. This is not filtered. This is a complete candid that like never mind the fact that they never talked prior to me telling them to do this. Like it's and now they're off doing this, right? They both graduated and they're both going to UNLV, right? So with full ride, by the way, full ride after getting that millennium, they worked hard for it. Let's see. Do I have a thing for this? I do, right? So listen, this is all that I'm asking you to do because this is a powerful moment. I want you to have it. And just pick one or the other. If you're open to the idea that you make a lasting impact every single day, I want you to put it in chat. But if you know you're making a lasting impact every single day, I want you to write it in chat. And be vulnerable. It's okay. If you're not 100% sure, but you have enough space to say, you know, I'm open to it. That's good enough. All right. Because that's professional development. All right. That's getting there. All right. That's not surviving. That's going somewhere. It's like, and I promise it's not a pointless activity. It's because I want you to see that in this journey, you're not alone. I want you to see that in this journey, there's other people that they might question it too, but they're still open, right? Regardless of what you have to do, regardless of the lesson plans you're working on tomorrow, or the PLC template from last week you didn't do, or the SLG that, oh my God, it's a new spreadsheet, right? That you're still here and you're able to see that people are leaving space. That's good enough for me. All right. And now that we know the little things stick, let's talk about the big things because big things matter. Oh, we're going to do a voluntary share. You know, let's skip it for now. SLG coming tomorrow. Okay, make it sound like a monster. So, big things matter too, right? You know what? Oh, wait, we have a story. I had parents of a student come up to me a few years ago and said that they were both in my middle school orchestra many years ago. They were sorry for their bad behavior. Oh, that's funny. But that they said that you had a positive influence on all of your students and they're glad that they're your child's music teacher. Oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So big things matter. Okay. I think that the way that we raise children in America has changed significantly. I think that we went from a very strict dynamic of you be a man, you be a lady, right? To be creative, express yourself. There's a place for you, there's a community for you. And I think because of that, when people became more connected and you know technology advanced, now everyone has a computer in their pocket and everyone is easier to get a hold of each other. Remember when you had to call people and ask for directions to go places? Because I remember that. I mean, I was small, but I remember that. Like, turn left at this spot. It's just that's not ever going to be our students' worlds. If you have kids, it's not going to be your kids' world, right? And so the reality, MapQuest, right? I remember there was this thing on MapQuest where if you said you wanted to go from like Florida to Cuba, it would tell you to go rent a jet ski. Just go for it, like long haul. So because our students are more connected, and I guess this comes up in a lot of different ways, and it's to try to persuade you to have more patience. And I'm not going to try to do that because everyone has feelings about it, and might be positive, they might not be. Whether it's a causation or a correlation doesn't matter. Let's talk about the reality, and the reality is that our kids are up against some stuff that we weren't up against, right? Like sickness, mental health choices, their own choices. I mean, the opportunity they have to really, oh my God, sorry. The opportunities that they have to make really dumb decisions, that isn't something unprecedented, right? Mental health, you know, it used to be that it was easy enough to say, just suck it up, man. We didn't have mental health problems when I was younger, right? It's just not like that. I mean, and you want to talk about the pandemic, hot button topics, let's just transcend it, right? Let's move above it. Let's ascend past it, right? Like it doesn't matter why, right? It matters that we're here and then we need to do something about it. And these are the things that our students are up against. I've had students ask me for mental health services. I've had students ask me how to get a good lawyer. Yes, Alyssa, I promise I will give you both. There's about 15 minutes left, so I'll give you both right at the end. Sickness. I mean, we have kids that are like very, very sick. You know what I mean? I personally, you're welcome. I personally have one for all of these. I've been the guy that a student has called in the middle, not called, sorry, I got my phone number. A student has emailed in the middle of the night saying, yo, I'm killing myself and I'm gonna do it. Like, this ain't a joke, this is happening, right? It's like, if you're not here to do something about it right now in this moment, then that's the final sign I need. Right? And I guess sometimes, like, I mean, God, that was scary, but luckily the kid's okay now. I've had kids come out of mental hospitals, go into them. I've had kids that got into really bad legal problems. They needed a lawyer. Like, they needed to know what to do before the stuff would follow them their whole lives, before one mistake made them on the fringe or outcast of society forever, right? And you know what? I think that also, I mean, one time I had to liberate a child from what could have been a cult or a homeless shelter in Texas. Like, these are the moments, right? These are the moments. And everyone has them too. I've had to breathe life into a child as an educator. Okay, there was one time that a kid, I didn't even know him. He like came into my classroom and he was like, please help me. And he passed out and hit his head. I had to like CPR him, like, no joke. Okay. And but it happened years ago. Nobody's talking about it. It's just not the case. It's just not the case. Now, the thing that I'm gonna say is this. There is a wholehearted belief I have that I think some of you have, but I want to see. All right. And I believe that teachers save lives. It is a teacher that sometimes has to, even if they had no business being that person. I had no business being that kid's email. No business. All right. I didn't even know him that well. All right. I had no business being the person to give that kid CPR, but it happens. All right. It's part of the gig. All right. And I believe teachers save lives. And I want to know if you think so too. And so if you have reason to believe that during your teaching career, you have saved at least one human life, right? Teachers save lives in the chat. Can we take a moment and see this? Like understand the gravity of this, right? These are all literal human lives, at minimum one, where people can say for a fact they know would not be on this earth. That light would be snuffed out if that person was not there in education. Okay. And I'm sure there's a lot of you that if you're not writing in the chat right now because you're not sure, you should be sure. Okay, you should be sure. And we're gonna do voluntary share for this too, but again, winds up that I'm taking a little longer than I thought I would. That's fine though. Let's keep talking. Needs and advocacy. It's important. If you're a SPED teacher, can you please write "I'm a SPED teacher" in the chat? It's important. We want to celebrate you. Melanie C is a SPED teacher. Is that it? If you're a SPED teacher, please write in the chat, "I'm a SPED teacher." Important. Oh, just one, just Melanie. All right, let's talk about it. Because this was a trick question. You should have all said it. We are all SPED teachers, are we not? Under very rare circumstances, are one of us not a SPED teacher, right? Every single one of us are SPED teachers in some way, shape, or form. And you should be celebrated for that because it's important work. It is important work. And I think that sometimes when we talk about it, we get caught up in the paperwork, right? And we kind of lose sight of the human, right? The human. And I think that I would like to see a world, or at least a country, maybe the state of Nevada, where we stop saying, right? We stop saying that these SPED kids, these kids enrolled in special education, have special needs, and we start saying that they have special rights. Okay, because when we start looking at it that way, we start seeing a little bit more of the human side of things, right? And when they say our most vulnerable populations, it's a great bumper sticker, I'm sure. But they are vulnerable. I had a moment once where I don't know, I don't want to get into the whole thing, but I had like, one of my students, his sister, I'd never known she existed. I saw her show up on the IEP 504 calendar because I wanted one of those half CUs for going to the meeting. And I saw it was the kid's sister, and I was like, all right. And I don't know, I felt moved. For whatever reason, I was in a bubble bath in the morning. I looked up like, all right. And later that day, I asked the brother what it is, and he said, "Yeah, I had a sister. She's in her senior year last year. She came down with, I don't know, whatever syndrome, and she's just not the same. Like she's barely functional now. Barely functional now." The session ends at 4:10. I promise I'll get it to you, Linda. And so I called the mom and I said, all right, well, you know what? For whatever reason, we're at this juncture together. What do you need for the kid? What do you need for her? I hear there's issues. What do you need? She says, I need an iPad. I was like, okay. Can do. And so I went to the site-based tech and I said, do we even have to make this a thing? Can we just give the kid an iPad? It's a homebound student. He's like, yeah, sure. Gave him the iPad. It was no problem. Went to the meeting, said write in the IEP so nobody can take her iPad away. And that was that. But some would say I'd have no business doing that, right? I mean, it's not even my student. I've never even met the person, right? But I'm supporting the family. And I did it just because I felt like it was the right thing to do. I felt moved. I did it. And we're gonna skip the share on this. Right? What I'm gonna say is teaching is a communal activity, right? Teaching is a communal activity. And so next time someone ever tells you to stay in your lane when you're trying to advocate for something for a student, just say that. Teaching is a communal activity. And I appreciate your support. It usually works. You'd be surprised. It usually works because it's not something you have to learn, it's something you have to remember. I mean, that's just truth. Thanks, Anna. Teaching is a communal activity. Hey, they're doing it anyway. Teaching is a communal activity. It's getting that kid over the line of graduation alive, safe. It is a communal activity. It's not a one-person thing. You know, these students have, what does it say? It feels good to say, right? These students, they have 60, 70 teachers sometimes. How many counselors? How many people along the way? It's a communal activity. And that's the point. I remember one time I had a student, really good kid. And I don't know, it's like, you know how sometimes you get a student and you know immediately, like, okay, that's a really good one. That's a really good one. Like whatever it takes, we're gonna get that kid advantages. I can just tell. Oh wow. So I had one, and I had met him in 6th grade. By the time he came to 8th grade, I wasn't sure we'd see each other again, right? Because I didn't know I was going to another school. I didn't call the lady yet. And so I was talking to him about scholarships because I knew he was college bound and he was made of the stuff immediately. Some of them you can just tell. And I remember he had mentioned it to his counselor at some point, and this lady totally came at me about it too and was like, "Why are you talking to this kid about? What are you talking to this kid about scholarships for?" And I said, "Because he needs to know they exist and apply for them and when and how." And she was like, well, you should just really stay in your lane. Like that's a counselor's job, and it's not a middle school counselor's job. We don't have scholarships for middle school. And I was like, I think that's objectively false. Okay, one, but two, I was like, just tell me why. Why are you having an issue with this? And she said, well, you shouldn't give them false hope. And so this was my moment. I had this one in the chamber waiting for the day someone said it, and I was like, there's nothing false about hope. It's like I was like ready. I was ready for this Facebook quote to come out. I was like, there's nothing false about hope. Then I left. Yeah, guess where he is right now? College. And he's in early college, right? So not last year, but the year before, I got him into CSN high school. So he's getting his entire associate's degree during high school and completely for free. Okay. talk to me again about Hope Lady. And had the teaching as a communal activity thing at the time, I would have used it then as well. But no, that came later. But it's a communal activity, and people should be open to that. And if they're not, you should make them open to that because you're a part of it. You're a part of the team. This leaves us with 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I don't want to speed through it, so I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to say this. I'm going to leave it with a couple important points. Maslow's, I'm not going to talk to you about it. I'm going to tell you there's a reason you need to know it if you don't already. And that's because we have a culture in this country of dehumanizing our students, and you shouldn't do that. No, you can't go to the bathroom. Well, that's not your dog. That's a human, right? If it's an issue, I'm sure there's a way to handle it with the family, but that is not your dog. I can't tell you how many times I hear people talking to students as if they were an animal. They're not animals, they're humans, right? It's like in terms of abuse, like abusing privileges, I think it's usually an exception. It's an outlier. It doesn't happen every day. If it does, it can be handled, but don't start on the wrong foot. Don't start on the no, I'm gonna treat you like an animal foot. That's not your dog. That is a human being. All right. You'll be better for it. You'll feel better about it. It'll be less stressful, I promise. Because it's like then every time they try to ask you for something that's a basic need, doesn't sound like a fight. Just advice. What is going through students' heads? I'll show you. These are from my students. The ones I didn't know. It's like the icebreaker situation. This is what goes through their heads. If my teacher really knew me, they would pity me. Okay. My friends really knew me, they'd find me obnoxious. Okay. That's pretty heavy stuff, right? Is there anything that's pretty heavy stuff? And forget the misspellings. I get it. The English teacher's probably like lost it right now seeing this. But this is the sort of thing that comes up, right? Here's a great one. This one's actually, oh my God, it gets me every time. If my teacher really knew me, he'd know there's nothing special and I'm just an ordinary person with no gifts. He'd know I don't believe in myself to make my own choices. I just use what I learned in school to help me. This is a candid. I said, tell me one thing that I should know about you. Okay. This is what goes through their heads. This is the state of the mindset of our students, right? And sometimes the reality is you don't know what you don't know, right? I mean, this is one literally saying in black and white, you know, I have bipolar disorder and sometimes I need people to just not talk to me. Okay. I had known the kid for 6 years when I got this from him. I didn't know he was bipolar. It didn't come up. I knew that his uncle hung himself in his bedroom when he was 9 years old. I didn't know he was bipolar. It never came up. What do you know about that? Okay. So leave some space because you don't know what you don't know. And if you're creating a space where they can feel comfortable growing, right? Like growing, like, so you're not trying to have a stranglehold on their formative years or their time in your class, and you give them a little bit of space, you might be surprised what comes up. You might be surprised what they can overcome. And you might be surprised like how good it feels, right? To not have to feel like you have to be in full control of it, right? Not all students want to opt out of their education. Don't take it personal, right? You can take it professional if you want, but don't take it personal. Teachers are creatures with the biggest ego. It's not personal. They're young, right? They're young, they're misguided. They don't know the social cues like we do, right? They don't know that could come off as offensive. Be the person to show them, make them into that adult. Don't try to create a feud with them like that. But that's what happens, right? Don't fight to be irrelevant. Leverage technology. Don't fight against it. Read the room, read the individual. You don't know what you don't know. We just talked about it. No, share, control and space. And this is the last minute, but it's important. It's important. Okay. If you leave the room for the in-between moments, sometimes you'll see connections being made that had nothing to do with you. These in-between moments, call it education in a different way. They exist and they happen for a reason, right? These are kids happy because he came back from having COVID and he was safe, right? But before that, he had 105.4 degree fever when he was carted out of my classroom because I'm the one that had to tell the nurse this was over with. And you know what? Last part, and then I'll give you your surveys, I promise. This is the last part, last one. If you give them space, you give them space. Don't talk about behavior. Just give them space to grow. Maybe you'll catch them dancing instead of fighting. All right. And that's it. That's all I have for you guys. And I hope it made a difference. I'm really bad with endings. Okay. I'm really bad with endings. I'm bad at closing. And so I'll just say that I appreciate you guys being here with me, right? I very much do. I appreciate you guys being here with me and listening and participating. And I'm very glad that you all made it to the end. And I hope that if you could take one thing out of this so that you can show up on Monday with just a slightly, at least a slightly teeny tiny difference in how you might approach education or your job or that student in that moment, then I don't know. I think that might have made it worth it. All right, let me give you both your surveys. Make sure to do them both. Do both surveys. You're welcome. Okay, wait. Okay, first one is session attendance. The second one is the session survey for this session. Please do them both and then run off to the ending keynote. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I stopped recording. LOL.